France has a new Prime Minister, a 34-year-old. Only two things of interest about him. One is that he is married to a man. Ooh la la, well, it is France after all. And the more important thing is that he has never had a job. I'm not making that up. He has not ever had a job before. But he's the new Prime Minister of France. Mind you, nobody knew the name of the last Prime Minister of France, who resigned for reasons not yet clear, at least not here. Given the privacy laws in France, it may be some time before the whole show is revealed. But the new Prime Minister will make no difference, because no Prime Minister under Macron is going to strike out in any kind of independent way. It's a rubber stamp assembly, a rubber stamp parliament in France, as indeed it is in London. Just this evening, the Conservative government passed a law to make it a prosecutable offence to boycott Israel, to boycott anybody as a matter of fact. And that would, of course, have seen half the parliament in prison for calling for boycotts against apartheid South Africa in times gone by, times in which I sat in the parliament, when the Labour leadership eventually relentlessly called for the absolute ostracism of apartheid South Africa, for boycott, divestment, and sanctions of South Africa. Today's Labour leaders went to the dispatch box in the opening of the debate to say that they wholeheartedly opposed boycott, divestment, and sanctions directed at the apartheid state of Israel. Well, that came as little surprise. Labour had two stories today. First of all, the former leader of the Labour Party and my parliamentary colleague for almost 3 decades, my colleague for almost 4 decades, was picked by the government of South Africa to join their delegation at The Hague tomorrow, about which more later. This is recognition of Jeremy Corbyn's decades of opposition to apartheid as an idea, to racism as a concept. In the same frame, 4 Labour members of Parliament went to Israel to show their support for the genocide that appears in court in The Hague tomorrow. Labour has killed itself. It has committed hara-kiri. Millions of people, not just millions of Muslim people, millions of other people, young people, politically conscious people, activist people, will never dream of casting a vote for Sir Keir Starmer, who turns out to be the man who, as Director of Public Prosecutions, prosecuted the entirely innocent sub-postmasters who were ruined, many going to prison because of a computer malfunction in the upper reaches of the post office, now subject to a record-breaking television drama which has got the whole country asking, how could this have happened? Well, one of the main reasons why it happened is that the Labour leader, the unequivocal supporter of Benjamin Netanyahu's Zionist government, ordered their prosecution, and many subsequently went to prison. If there are any more reasons for not voting for Keir Starmer's Labour Party, I really don't need to hear them. Millions of people now know that this double-dealing, spineless hypocrite is unworthy of the position that he holds as the misnamed leader of the opposition in Britain. not fit for purpose, either in this job or the job that he is looking for as Prime Minister of Britain. But all eyes will be not on France, not on Britain, but on the Netherlands tomorrow, where in Den Haag, The Hague, the International Court of Justice will consider a case tabled by South Africa. How fitting is that? Tabled by South Africa, but supported by everyone from the Maldives to Turkey, from the Arab League to most African countries, including Kenya, which has been the recipient of a great deal of agitational lobbying by Israel over decades, whose Prime Minister today said he was fully in support of South Africa's move. It is a badge of honor for South Africa, and for those of us, like Corbyn, like me, who stood with South Africa during the dark days when Nelson Mandela was being called openly in Parliament a terrorist, when the African National Congress were routinely denounced as communists and that their leader deserved to be in the dungeons of apartheid. I, as I've told you before, actually gave some of my blood on the floor of the Guguletu police station in Cape Town, South Africa, during the apartheid era, after taking repeated blows from a racist apartheid white South African police officer who had the name of Campbell and whose antecedents were Scottish. I always knew never to trust a Campbell. We are proud of South Africa this evening. Whatever happens in this case tomorrow, but whatever happens can only be a travesty of justice if it does not find in favor of the South African case, an 80-page case, which largely consists of threading together the public statements of the Israeli leaders themselves, from Netanyahu downwards, including the defense minister, including the finance minister, including the economy minister, including all the high officers of the Israeli state. Their own statements condemn them of the crime of genocide, the ultimate crime introduced after the Second World War as a response to the genocide of the Holocaust visited upon tens of millions of people in Europe, 6 million of them Jewish. It is the ultimate irony that in 2024, a state claiming falsely to be the state of the Jews should be facing a genocide case in the ICJ at The Hague, because that state is now the nearest thing to what happened in Nazi-occupied Europe in the late 1930s and 1940s. It's almost impossible to exaggerate the irony of that. And yet, if you read South Africa's document, South Africa's case, it contains all the evidence that you could possibly imagine. Words that Goebbels himself could have spoken. Words that Eichmann himself could have evinced. Words that could have been said by the people in charge of the ovens, the death camps of Auschwitz, Treblinka, and all the other terrible hellholes where millions of people were eviscerated, annihilated, not for anything that they had done, but merely because of who and what they were. What's the difference between what's happening in Gaza and what happened at the uprising of the Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto? Nothing. There is no difference at all. In the Warsaw Ghetto, the Nazis put them behind wire and then massacred them. In Gaza, The Israelis put them behind wire and then massacred them over and over and over and over again. So many times, even a scholar of the issue like me would find it difficult to enumerate, to adumbrate all the genocidal assaults there have been on the people of Gaza. And not even just since 2008, when they voted for Hamas. Long before it, I myself in the Jabalia camp witnessed Israeli border guards, Druze, I should tell you, not Jews, Druze, Israeli border guards, were forcing women with toothbrushes to clean the road in the street in which they lived. I witnessed it in a jeep belonging to the United Nations. The crimes committed by a state which claims to be the state of the people who suffered the last great genocide of millions is now in the dock. And I have no idea how they can possibly begin to mount a defense. And I say what I said on Sunday. If this is a court at all, if these judges are judges at all, if this justice is justice at all, then the case must be upheld and a cease and desist order must be issued. And if it is, it will have the most profound impact on the Palestinian case, the Palestinian cause, that there has ever been, because it will make it, in many cases, legally impossible for Western governments, especially so-called democratic governments, to have anything to do with that genocide state in the future. The law says that genocide must be stopped and must be punished. Well, you're not going to be allowed to sell weapons, give succor and comfort, give diplomatic cover to a state found guilty of genocide, because you yourself can then be prosecuted, something which you saw a taste of before a House of Commons Select Committee this very week, when David Cameron, who, when Prime Minister of Britain, described Gaza as the largest open-air prison in the world, and moreover said it must not be allowed to continue to be. Now that he's Foreign Secretary, was asked by the Select Committee if any official in the Foreign Office had pointed out to him that Israel was breaking international law in turning off water, turning off power, blocking food, making the people of Gaza starve whilst being bombed relentlessly 24/7 for 96 days. Do you know what his answer was? I can't remember every piece of paper that has crossed my desk. Well, you would have remembered that one, Mr. Cameron, because that one makes it illegal for you to do what you are doing, which is to facilitate the attacks on Gaza through the British base in Cyprus. It would make it illegal for you to be acting on behalf of a state which your own officials have warned you is in breach of international law. So it's unlikely that you are so incompetent, Mr. Cameron, that you did not know if you had been so advised. Or, I'm not sure if this is worse or not, or you were being dishonest in front of that Select Committee of Parliament this week. Either way, if the judgment in The Hague goes against Israel, it will be legally impossible for any Western government on pain of being prosecuted themselves for breaking the court's decision on genocide. It will change everything. It will knock BDS into a cocked hat. It will change all things utterly. And if the court finds Israel guilty of genocide and orders it to cease and desist in a presidential election year in the United States, it will surely be impossible, even for the bloodthirsty gang of cutthroats, Biden and Blinken and co., to do other than tell Israel to cease and desist. At which point Netanyahu falls, maybe goes to prison. At which point everything in the world, the whole chessboard, is turned upside down. So there's a lot riding on this case. Tomorrow in the UK, you'll be able to watch it live from 9 a.m. The press release from the court says 10 a.m. Bear in mind that 10 a.m. in The Hague is 9 a.m. in London. For the rest of you, you can do the maths. I expect that no court in all history will have been so closely watched. Now, it's possible, of course, that these judges will turn out to be the same kind of stooges that are getting ready to send Julian Assange into 175 years of penal servitude. That's possible. But here's my take. It's this. I said it on Sunday. Most of you disagreed with me. Many of these countries, including Joe Biden, must, as a matter of simple political logic, be looking for an exit ramp from what is turning out to be a nightmare of catastrophic proportions for everyone concerned, for the Arab rulers, for the state of Israel itself, for the Palestinian people above all, for the people of Lebanon who may soon be plunged into an all-out war between the partisans of the Lebanese resistance and the Zionist state, for the people of the Red Sea area, for the people of Yemen, for the people of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, for everybody. This is turning into a catastrophe. And there seems no way to stop it because the pit bull in charge, Netanyahu, his savage teeth stained by the blood of tens of thousands of people, has not only no incentive to stop it, he has every incentive to keep it going and to, if possible, expand it into a regional, maybe even a world conflagration, because he's finished at the end of this conflict. He may be behind bars at the end of this conflict. So you have a classic case where the tail is wagging the dog, where the client state is out of control and may cost Joe Biden, if this continues, any possibility of remaining president of the United States, the subject we are polling you about this very evening. Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night. This is the mother of all talk shows.